Fantastic, we'll do that. So Naya, would you have anything else you'd like to say?
There were many safety measures, like it was all fenced in with a gate, and there was a small area where toddlers can play without getting hurt, and the higher you got, the higher the walls got.
Well, this is really some great ideas that you have and what you saw in Montana, and we're going to ask you to come back and share those ideas and see what we can do to help facilitate or look at building a park similar to that honors mining. Well, thank you very much for coming. Does any other councilor have anything? Mr. Baraboo, Councilor Baraboo has a question or a comment.
No, just a comment that we will have some of our staff available to, once we get your information, to work with you to take a look if it's feasible to do this in Virginia. We'll have to go through, you know what budgets are, right? We'll have to go through a budget process to see if we can afford to do it at this point in time coming up for one of the coming years. It won't be done this year because the budget is all spoken for, but in the future. Okay, you understand that? Okay, thank you for coming. You're a wonderful young lady.
So I have one more thing I'd like to add. We talk with different companies, throughout, looking for them to help out with some community projects. And we have had some conversation with a mining company, as a matter of fact, that's looking to do some more community development for children in the area. So we're going to be contacting them, and I'll give that information to our city staff, and they can give them a call, and maybe we can facilitate this a little bit more quickly and get this project going, at least have a plan in place. So we're going to ask you to come back, and we do have your email address, if that's okay to email you. Perfect. Naya, thank you so very much for coming in. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Jean Mackey discussing traffic signals and handicap parking on Chestnut Street.
Good morning, Jean.
Good morning, Mayor Cuffey, councilors. I think that's about the best presentation from the audience that I have ever heard. Congratulations, Naya, that's wonderful. And I can picture a sandbox, not with sand, but with iron ore, and you can dig and just really fun.
She's already triggered a bunch of ideas.
Yep.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah. I see that I'm on the agenda for two things, discuss traffic signals and handicap parking on Chestnut Street.
Please.
When I was here some time ago, while I was a little more mobile, we talked a little bit about handicap parking. It was, I think, may have been during COVID, and I was doing shopping by calling a store and telling them what I wanted, and then finding a parking place nearby the store to pick up my merchandise. And they would often bring it out to me. We could arrange the payment through the car window or by phone. And that was working out very nicely. But then when COVID was over, it wasn't easy to find a parking place right in front of the store where I could get out and use my cane and not have to take my walker out of the back seat and so forth. And actually, I had not tried using my walker on Chestnut until the food truck festival. And I decided, well, heck, this sounds like a lot of fun. So, and I knew where there was I knew I was going to go to the Lyric Center, and I knew where there was a handicap parking space. It's the one on Chestnut, just off of 6th, right in front of the liquor store. And I forgot what time it was starting, so I got there kind of early. There weren't many cars parked. I parked in that handicap slot, pulled out my walker, set it up, and I walked down the street. I only, until I had lunch, I only went down to Lyric and spent some time there talking to the folks from the city of Virginia who were setting up the canopy over the Lyric Center theater entrance, and went into shopped at Salvation Army. Found 2 nice blouses for $8.98. Heck of a deal.
Good deal.
And so anyway, then I had decided I'm only going to go 1 block because I couldn't trust my legs to be even sitting on my walker. So then I walked back to there were 2 food trucks across the street from the liquor store in that open lot there. And that's where I was going to go for lunch. So I got to the corner, looked for the pressing button for the walk lights, no walk light button, but I was careful and I walked across the street, and everyone was very kind. They let me sit closer to the vendor while I was still in line, and that worked beautifully. Ordered my meal, got a bag to take it home with, turned around, went back to the corner. Again, no pushing button for walk lights. And there were cars, but I was careful. And I went then, of course, back to my excellent handicap parking space and lifted my walker into the back of the car and put my lunch next to me on the seat and drove home by way of Chestnut. Looked like it was a wonderful day for everybody. Lots of people. It was excellent, and I see it's happening again twice. And I will be there. I'll do another block next time. So anyway, I am now checking out where are the handicap parking places. And I am keeping track in my mind of where they are, and if I would recommend at some later point to have another 1 or 2 or to put in, I will certainly let you know. Okay, traffic signals. I heard, and I think it was out of Councillor Johnson's mouth a few weeks ago at one of the meetings, a suggestion that because your traffic signals on Chestnut are old and there are maintenance problems and it's difficult to find parts, that you are considering eliminating all of the traffic signals on Chestnut. I think that would be a bad mistake for a couple of different reasons. 3 different reasons, actually. One is that there are always people crossing Chestnut on the avenues. And if you simply have a constant stream of traffic going one way or the other, how are you going to cross it safely? How are you going to make a left-hand turn safely? And even how are you going to make a right-hand turn safely when so often what's parked on the corner is one of those big, long pickup trucks, and you can't see around it until you're almost in the intersection. I think you're looking for accidents. The second thing is parking. You've got some excellent parallel parking and nose-in parking on Chestnut. Okay. People park. People have to leave. It's going to be with a constant flow of traffic. How are you going to be able to safely pull out of those parking places when you have a constant flow of traffic? With the lights, you always know that there's going to be a bit of a lull. And again, oftentimes you're parked next to one of those big, long pickup trucks with a cab, and you can't see around it until you're practically out into the street. The third thing is, we want our businesses on Chestnut Street to thrive. When people have to stop at the lights, they are moving more slowly. They have a chance to look on both sides of the street. Oh, I didn't know that store was there. You know, I think you are doing a disservice to the store owners on Chestnut if you don't force people to slow down a little bit and see who's there and think, oh, next time I'm going to go there next time. I wonder if they've got such and so. So those are my comments on traffic signals and handicap parking.
Well, thank you, Jean, for coming, and I'm sure that we have some of the councilors that have some questions with respect to that. But before we go there, just to let you know that we're doing a traffic study in right now. We haven't decided if we're going to remove all the lights. We're looking at what the costs associated with those are. Those signals lights have to be at least replaced or removed because they're old and antiquated, like so they can't get parts. However, we're not going to be a free flow of traffic going up and down the main street. There'll be traffic control devices at the intersection. There'll be warning systems. There'll be pedestrian crosswalks, things there. So the lights are going to be disappearing. It's going to be free for all. There's going to be a controlled intersections will be controlled at on Chestnut Street that will accommodate and answer the questions that you have. So that being said, we do have we had our engineer. He's walked out, but let's go to the council first for some additional questions, comments, and clarifications.
Mayor Coffey?
Where's? Oh. Okay. So before we ask Matt, because he's our engineer of record, he'll come up and give you additional information. Did you have one question before we go to Councilor Johnson?
Excuse me, one more thing I wanted to add.
Sure.
Which was, of course, the walk lights for pedestrians. And it takes those of us who are moving with walkers and wheelchairs longer to cross the street than it takes people who can dart.
Sure. Very good, thank you. So Councilor Johnson, then we'll go to our engineer of record, Matt Reed. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Ms. Mackey, that was me. However, I did not say get rid of all the stoplights. I know I didn't say that. My logic is 2nd Avenue and 6th Avenue are thoroughfares, and I question whether or not we need it on 4th Avenue. We've had some discussion about the Public Safety Center and the need for that. I also, too, would reiterate what the mayor said about not just having a free flow of traffic, but how do we better do it? Your concern about not having a button to push for the lights is very valid. That's part of the problem with this current system is we can't. They're not set up to do that. We can't add anything to them. So coming up with new ways of doing it, creating road crossings that are pedestrian friendly, will address the things you are. I don't even think we can address how long we can set these lights like we can, like up at the hospital. Excuse me, I know that several years ago we set those crossings to the maximum amount of time allowed. These lights, we can't change that at all. That's how old they are. And so the new lights, and the cost is very prohibitive for it. Matt, was upwards of $1 million to replace all of them. So that was my thinking, was that how do we create a better flow of traffic downtown Virginia, not to eliminate, and I would never even think about eliminating them on 2nd Avenue. That would just be, I think we can do better on 2nd Avenue by all means. So I appreciate you coming in, Ms. Mackey, and we've had this discussion similar to this, but it is people like you and people like Nyla and the lady last year who wrote us a letter about there being no crosswalks on 2nd Avenue. Now there are crosswalks on 2nd Avenue. That's how things get done in town. So I appreciate you coming in, and Appreciate your willingness to try to walk around downtown. We're slowly fixing some of the other things that have happened. Some of the decorative things are becoming challenging for us, so we're getting some of those things fixed too. So that's all I have. Thank you again.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. I would just like maybe have Matt Reed, our engineer of record from SCH. He can give us a little bit more information about how this stuff works moving forward. So, Matt, this is Matt Reed. Thank you, Matt.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, so we've been looking at Chestnut Street as a whole, actually, and the traffic signals were brought up. And we did do some traffic counts and looked at pedestrian counts and things like that. And I don't think the recommendation that came out of that would be to remove all of them for sure. There might be a possibility that one or two of them may come out, just with the less traffic, but for sure at 2nd, 6th, and 4th, I think the recommendation is going to be to leave those in. And then we'll have to look at 3rd and 5th and see what type of traffic control would best fit there, whether it's stop signs, whether it's two-way, four-way, excuse me, or at the end of the day, maybe the lighting ends up, the traffic signals end up going back in, but we aren't quite that far along yet. But there'll be something, as Councilor Johnson, Mayor Cuffey said, there'll be something out there to control traffic, and pedestrian traffic too.
Thank you, Matt.
Third is the avenue that goes to the Government Center, St. Louis County Government Center parking lot,
Yes, 3rd Avenue.
Yes, yep,
and the post office, except from the wrong direction, but,
right,
yeah. But coming back from the post office, you'd be using Third.
yeah. Yeah, we'll be looking at all of that stuff as we move forward. There's definitely some improvements along, even like you had mentioned, the pedestrian lighting and things like that. There's, Chestnut Street's outdated and it's on the city's radar to make some improvements.
Okay, any other questions, Gene? More info to follow to address the concerns that you have. Thank you, Matt, very much. Any other councilors have any questions or comments? Councilor Beyondich first, and then over to Councilor Bearable. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I appreciate everything you're saying about the handicap parking spots. When I had my business on Chestnut Street, it was very difficult for people to get to me. And often I'd steer them into the alley and I would run out the back door to get things to them. So I completely agree that we need to be a little bit more accommodating to the elderly population that has a hard time finding a place to not only park, but be able to walk down our streets. So I completely understand that, and I think we can do better, and hopefully we'll be moving towards that. The elderly shop downtown. A lot of them are walking, and like you say, with using a walker, it's difficult to get from one place to the other. So I would look forward to see what we're coming up with, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, hi, Jane. We also are going to be putting that, it wouldn't happen this year if we decided to put lights on all the avenues. It would just be putting on it for a budget process for next year for 2022, because the budget is set for this year, basically for 21. But I'm chairman of Street and Alley, and that's going to be an agenda item to be looking at. Councilor Johnson's on that committee, and Councilor Barnzelli's on that committee also. And we're going to be looking at with the engineer to see what we can do. Stop signs may not be the answer on the avenues if we skip some, because the car will come, stop, go, cut another one, stop, come, go. There's no real space time to get handicapped people across. So I have an issue with that personally, because at times there's a lot of traffic, especially around lunchtime, around closing time when people leave from work. That those Chestnut Street gets very busy, and the stoplights, if you coordinate them right, which we can do with new systems, you can go through almost the whole works one direction and then the others. And then the emergency route is the other one, 4th Avenue, which is an emergency route for the city fire trucks and ambulances. So we got to take a good hard look at all of that. Okay, thank you for coming in, though. You have some good suggestions. Thank you.
Well, Thank you, Gene. As always, a pleasure to see you here at the council meeting and being a citizen that, keeps their thumb on the pulse of what's going on. Thanks for coming in, and we'll be addressing those issues for you, and please stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Gene, would you like us to let you know when we have some of these meetings? We can notify you of these meetings if you would like. Okay, can you make a note of that, Pam?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Gene.
One more thing, Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. Also, most of those meetings, are they not Zoom available? Is that correct now? Is Street and Alley on Zoom or no? Yeah, so if that's something that you want to accommodate, Jean, that if you have a computer and you would be easier for you to, maybe some of these meetings happen in the winter.
Yes, it would be much more convenient for me to access them via Zoom.
On video? Okay. Yeah, so I would just recommend that when you do meet about that topic, that we could potentially set up our system to have it recorded. And then if you weren't able to watch it live, that it would also then be available on YouTube.
I have Zoom access. We
Oh,
have Zoom
excellent.
meetings at the Historical Society
Okay.
as well, so,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you, that would be excellent.
Thank you. The next item is Mike Butler discussing the bird scooters and potential of locating them in Virginia, and Mike is on the line.
Thank you for your patience, Mike. I just want to let you know, as you get you started, I did a lot of research myself about these bird scooters. I'm excited about having them in Virginia, and I will be supportive of it. So, Mike, once again, welcome.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Emily. I did tell him there were some technical difficulties in the last one, so I did want this to be more of an open discussion, and talk a bit more about what this means for Virginia and maybe any sort of questions or just any the community has.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And what I'd like to do, if I may, is have John Sullivan from our planning department. He's done some research about the bird scooters and how things operate around the city. And I know that you made a presentation, John, with respect to this. And do you have any more information or any other comments you'd like to make before we move to the council?
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor. Just for everybody's benefit, Bird Scooter is a national company, and they operate electric scooters, and they're enabled through a credit card. And they're a fairly new company. They started in 2017. They're hitting Minnesota pretty good. They've got scooters currently in Grand Rapids. And I've talked to my counterpart over in Grand Rapids to see how that all works, and things are going fine over there. What Mike wants to know is if we want to do that here, and there's a memorandum of understanding in your packet, and that memorandum of understanding is kind of what allows Bird Scooter to operate scooters within the community. Scooters have to meet the same rules as what bicycles have to meet. They're regulated the same way. In your packet, I also had information on the trail, the Mesabi Trail, that they're specifically allowed on trails. One thing that would need to be done, if we pass the resolution, Bird Scooter would need to contract with and partner with a fleet manager. And what a fleet manager is that's somebody local that's familiar with the community that will kind of organize the scooters and, put them together and all that kind of thing, and work out some of the details. And I think Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director, and I have had some discussions about how to roll this out and how we could manage it. And I think we've got some good ideas on how we could lay out the scooters for access to the public and have the MEC kind of be the focus of where they are. And then we could run them out of Alcott Park, and we could also run them out of downtown and have a feeder system in between on our trail system. One thing we would need to do is work with Mike and set up areas where, the bird scooters are not allowed. And once that's entered into the system, the bikes kind of just come to a stop if they're in a spot they're not supposed to be. So that's all taken care of by the system. I think right now what Mike is looking for is just some kind of, if the council is generally supportive of this, we would recommend to pass the MOU, and then we'd work out a few of those details a little bit later on, how we run out, who that fleet manager is and everything else. That being said, I'll turn it back to you, and if anybody has any questions of Mike, he's on the line, so thank you.
Thank you very much, John. We'll go to Councilor Johnson. Just for a moment, I'd just like to make one comment. I have a group of friends, and they've tried to encourage me to buy one of these electric bicycles. I've resisted, but they use these electric bicycles similar to what the scooter system is, looking at the data about the scooters, just like an electric bicycle, and they use them as Mesaba Trail all over the place. They drive electric bikes all over town, and so this is just another addition of green transportation moving forward, and I can't see the negative. Working out the details, I think, is just a formality from my perspective. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a great idea. When I was in the Twin Cities 2 weeks ago, I paid special attention to the little scooters all over the place, and I did see specifically bird scooters along with the other guys, but people are using them all over, utilizing them. I think it's a great way for us to be able to diversify getting around in town with little to no obligation for the city, and I think this is just another amenity we can offer for when people do stop in town to have lunch. They can stop a little longer and stretch their legs, as it were. So I'll be supporting this.
Okay, thank you. So there is a memorandum of understanding in your packet. You've heard some information from John Sullivan from Planning. We did have discussion this at the last committee of the whole meeting as well. We did have a explanation, at least a partial from Mr. Butler with respect to this. I know there were some technical difficulties, but we have a gist of what we need there. I think that our staff is on board and moving into this memorandum of understanding, working out the details, and I would leave that up to staff in which to do that. And so does anybody have any other questions, comments, or concerns? I know there was a question about the comprehensive plan, how that fits in, but when I looked at the comprehensive plan, there's a lot of things about having reduced the greenhouse gases and all those kind of things, and this is just one other method in which to do so and provide amenities that the community needs and expects, not only from within the community, outside the community, and from a tourist perspective as well. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree, this does fit into our comprehensive plan nicely. The only thing I was really mainly concerned about is from a public safety perspective. And especially on Chestnut Street, when bikes, they're required to follow our ordinance, and they do not, a lot of bicyclists do not follow the ordinance. The other day, I was almost knocked over on the sidewalk in front of our store by a bicyclist. So my concern is, and I thought that I had requested that we have someone from public safety here to maybe educate us on how that enforcement would work. We currently don't have bike lanes, and that was one of the things in the comprehensive plan. The recommendation was to create bike lanes. So my concern is, and I know these might be used a lot of, on the trail usage. I don't know, John, if there was kind of some discussion about what type of utilization and where these would be utilized. I think it's fantastic, so people could visit downtown businesses and frequent restaurants and that type of thing. My main concern is from a public safety perspective. When we do have, pedestrians that utilize our sidewalks, obviously that are following the ordinance, but when bikers even come on the, as Jean says, the nose-in parking, I always say angle parking, it's very, when they're coming down and you're trying to back your vehicle out, from that type of perspective, they're coming zooming down, and I could just see this being an issue with scooters, and until we have some sort of bike lane or how we're going to conduct this, and I guess this is the first time I've heard that there will be certain areas, and I don't know if that's a computerized thing that Mr. Butler wants to discuss about, but I'm kind of curious about that portion of it. But the public safety, I don't know if there's anyone here today that could help me alleviate some of my concerns on that portion.
Okay, thank you. I can allude to just a little bit about the public safety issue. There is a city ordinance that doesn't allow bicycles on the sidewalk, right? And so these scooters follow the bicycle rules and the state law with respect to bicycles and how bicycles operate. And within this bird scooter program, and part of the memorandum of understanding doesn't address that, there's a list of things where they can and can't do, what they can and can't do. We have our Assistant Chief Chad Nicola just walking in, and so Chad, we were, Counselor Paul.
Thank
Okay.
you so much, Chad.
I'm hoping that the answer you make up is factual.
And
So,
can I also add one other item, and that.
did you hear that? What her first question was?
No, I did not.
Oh,
Okay, well,
It's a Monday, Tuesday morning at the
It
PED.
is.
I don't have a lot of time to watch meetings, I'll be honest.
Okay,
But all
I'm
good,
sorry.
all good.
Chief, go ahead.
Just super quick, the bird scooters do fall under our comprehensive plan for something that would be very advantageous for our city to do. My concern is public safety. My concern is sidewalk specific, not specifically Chestnut, but sidewalk specific. The enforcement, we don't have bike lanes, and how would that affect current pedestrians, and how could we help alleviate that if we do in fact bring the bird scooters to our community?
A lot of money making our roads wider is the first part. And we've talked about bikes in the past, Mayor, right? I mean, it's always been, and because we get a lot of adults riding bikes on sidewalks, which drives me insane because they shouldn't be. It's called a sidewalk, not a side ride, is what I tell people. But obviously, little kids, it's a little different story. We'd rather have them up on those sidewalks. But yeah, and I think the big thing would be is just making sure that people are well aware what are those main areas that we want them on, staying to our wider roadways, the Fifth Avenues, and most of our avenues are fairly decent as long as people are following calendar parking, which is another good reason to not get rid of calendar parking at some point, right? But then obviously, like A Street, it's wider, but it's a busy road all the time, so that makes it a little tougher. So it is something I think that the city really should look hardcore at, is how do we make it a little bit wider to allow for things like that? Because I do think it'd be great, and we have the perfect sized town for buzzing around and going and doing activities. But right now, I do think it'd be kind of tough to pull it off safely as things currently sit.
And I think, Mayor, if I may just add to that, is there, John, in development and in discussion with the bird scooter and Mike Butler, was there any discussion with any of our city folks or our engineer regarding bike lanes and how we could do this safely? Maybe we do, like Chad says, maybe some of those main thoroughfares that are really busy, 8th, we create some type of a bike lane that is a safe place for those scooters to, that actually does make sense with the MEC going to be there, but that's something in terms of planning that I think is really important. And Chestnut Street on that angle parking is another big scary thing, and I think that's only on the 300, no, that goes down, all the way down to Second, I believe, or maybe all the way down to
All the way
Railroad Avenue. So I think those things would need to be addressed, just because I can foresee some really bad things maybe taking place, so I'd
On
like
the
to
flip
see.
side, in the Twin Cities, you look at the way it's set up down there, and they just go for it. I mean, obviously, I guess we could probably get numbers from some of the PDs down there. There's accidents. I mean, there has to be in cities that size.
And I think that, the concern for public safety is an issue that we work out with the guidelines established for that, but we do follow the state guidelines with respect to bicycles, correct?
Yep,
And
absolutely.
so as we do that, so if we're gonna maybe, I'm gonna support moving forward with the memorandum of understanding today, and then have our staff work all those things out with public safety, only because I see these electric bicycles, I've ridden these electric bicycles, and they're around town all over the place. And so if we're gonna regulate bird scooters and say we're not gonna allow them to come in because we wanna put bike lanes in, then we shouldn't allow the electric bicycles either, because they're just exactly like a bird scooter. So I see the issues. I understand where you're coming from, Counselor Paulson. I think those are things that we can work on from a public safety perspective, but an overall responsibility with credit cards, who's going to use them, how responsive they're going to be, guidelines they have to follow, maps that they have to abide by, regulations that they have to follow with the city-state laws with respect to that. There's a lot of obstacles that have to be overcome in order for allow these to occur. And seeing them in these other small communities as well, that don't have bike lanes, they seem to be working just fine. Whether you have an electric bike or you have a scooter or you have a regular bike, if you're operating down the main street of Virginia, you can't say you can't have a bicycle on the main street. You can't have an electric bike on the main street. So, I mean, those issues are of concern. And we've developed our parking situation in the main street. And that's dangerous the way it is with angle parking, but that's the way the city elected body did before for the reasons that we're looking at today. But I'm still supportive of that moving forward. So does anybody have any other comments? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I will support this to bring it to the next level, but who would monitor if there were problems? And the one area that concerns me is Bailey's Lake. We're making that trail wider, we're making it nicer, but that trail is also used by a lot of elderly. So if there are problems, how are they reported and who takes care of them? So those are some of the questions that I will be looking for answers before we do a final vote on it. So just some safety concerns on that end also.
Okay, and I think in answer to your one question, I think Mr. Butler could probably answer the question of having a fleet manager in place to address all the concerns that they have. Mr. Butler?
Yeah, a lot of it is actually figured out between the city and ourselves. Every city that we work with, this is Albert Lee and Grand Rapids, they have a dedicated account manager. So you have someone here that you could speak with ongoing. This is an employee of Bird who understands our product and our service, and they'll actually be the ones that you can report these issues to, or if you have areas of improvement, if you have certain locations where you feel like these vehicles should not be ridden, if you have areas where you feel like these vehicles should be slowed down to a certain miles per hour or a certain speed, we can do all those things. But of course, we can't do it unless someone from the city actually tells us about it or is requesting these things. So that's part of the ongoing program. Obviously, in our mind, cities are our number one customer. We don't have a business without our cities. So if you ever have concerns about this, you can relay that onto your account manager. And then from there, if they want to relay that to the local fleet manager, they could do that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Okay. Any other questions before we come? First, Councilor Freely, and then over to Councilor Bearable. Councilor Freely.
Just quick, if I can talk, I've jumped in the lake this weekend and must have got into my voice, but I see that fleet management is a key factor to the success and having the right people in place to do that. There was some alluding to the fact that it would be at the park, and whether we'd be contracting with a vendor or whether it would be city employees that would be responsible for the fleet, that would not necessarily be the case, because I'm sure there's going to be maintenance and repair to these vehicles as well. Those are some of my concerns, but the accessibility for the utilization would be critical, and that would come through the fleet manager welcoming people to that program. The other thing would be, I'd like to see helmets on people when they're using these types of vehicles. Whether that would be required or not, I don't know, but in my estimation, I think that would be an advisable thing to have. And then the age limits with regard to who could use those vehicles would also be of interest to me, and the cost for the rental and so on and so forth. But I think it's a great idea for the city, but there are a lot of other peripheral things to concern yourself with prior to moving forward. But with the memorandum of understanding as it certainly currently sits, I'm favorable towards moving forward with this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Bearable.
Mike, I'm going to ask you a question. What are the speed capabilities of these scooters from low to high? What's the high speed and what's the low speed on these scooters?
The highest is going to be 15. 1.5.
Okay.
So they go the speed of a novice bicyclist.
Okay, so so bicycles can go a heck of a lot faster than that on these streets and stuff that we have. I think it's imperative that we look at this from a real perspective of people coming into town, because we're going to have Bailey's Lake all new. We're going to have a new set of trails addition to Silver Lake, where people will advertise our city big time for the beauty of these lakes within the city of Virginia. they won't be going any faster than bicycles when they're on a sidewalk. So I haven't heard of any real accidents, and they're available to be on the Masabi trails, and I haven't heard any accidents between bikes and pedestrians. They take the same lanes, or lane, I should say, when they're walking or using a bike on a Masabi trail, and that goes all over the place. And it's a good tourism thing for the city of Virginia. I'm all supportive to move this forward, so I'll be supporting this memorandum this morning.
Okay,
We
thank
can
you.
work out the details later.
Sure. Well, thank you, Councilor Burrow. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Butler. If you just stay on the line for a moment, so I'll call for some council action with respect to this memorandum of understanding. Councilor Johnson.
I will move the memorandum of understanding forward with the Bird Company.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the memorandum of understanding directing staff to move forward with the Bird Scooter program. Is there support? Support. Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Butler, we have passed the memorandum of understanding at this committee of the whole meeting. It goes to the council meeting next Tuesday for final approval, and we'll be looking forward to having our staff work with you and come back with some recommendations based on the questions that were asked today.
Outstanding. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Butler. Anything else? Hang on the line just one moment, please. Councilor Johnson.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I would like to make a motion that we direct city staff to seek out grants for education about proper bike etiquette and bike lanes.
Okay, a motion by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And once again, Mr. Butler, thank you very much. We look forward to hearing from you and our staff with respect to this project.
That was great. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is number 4, approve the professional services agreement with SEH for the police garage repair and addition.
Thank you.
This is for construction management and bidding.
Sure. Okay, looking for a discussion or council action. Councilor Freely.
Just for discussion, again, sorry for my voice.
Okay, we don't have a motion, but discussion is fine. Whatever you have there, Councilor Freely.
Have we talked about what the plans are going to be for this building and that garage once we move forward with the new building?
Yep, they're getting ready to go out for bids. They're with the base bid, just repairing the garage as is, and then the alternate would be adding the extension.
I guess what I'm saying is like, so we're going to put the money into the repair of this existing facility, but we're going to be moving to an entirely new facility, not necessarily city council or city chambers, but the police department. So I'm just wondering, what's the future of this building, and is it advisable to put that money back into this?
We have
It's not gonna be,
the insurance money waiting to be spent on the repair of the garage.
oh, so it's covered essentially.
It's covered, at least the garage portion. And at that time, when the bids come in, we have an add alternate to add the extension. And that's where we need to have the hard, serious discussion on what are we going to do with the rest of
And
the
that's the first step of moving forward. Okay, thank you.
and authorizing SEH to do all the work for us from this point forward.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. So we're looking for any additional discussion or council action with respect to the professional services agreement with SCH for the police garage repair, 1, and then the addition. So there'll be a bid for that and alternate bid for the addition.
And Mayor, may I point out that it's a fee hourly basis not to exceed $14,500.
Okay, very good, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
I'll approve the professional services agreement with SEH.
Councilor Paulson moves to approve and supported by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Next item on the agenda is approve the resolution accepting the quote from Abate Tech Environmental for the removal of asbestos material from 805 Fifth Avenue South. This is not our house. We are doing this as part of a grant for a private property.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? A support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is approve the resolution for hire. Number 1 is for single role paramedic. We have conducted interviews, been taking applications, and we are proposing to hire Mr. Trevor Smith with a start date on or after July 13th.
What's the name?
Trevor Smith.
Trevor Smith. Okay, thank you. Chief, that's your recommendation? Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. This goes to the council for final approval. Thank you.
Thank you. The next resolution for hire is for utility worker. Again, we have taken applications and conducted interviews, and we are proposing to hire Mr. Wesley LaValle.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Johnson to hire the utility worker, West LaValle.
Correct.
Is there support? Is there
I'll support Mayor for
support by
discussion.
Counselor Bearable? Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Very qualified person.
Very qualified.
Yeah, thank you.
Number 7 is review the recommendation for the Personnel Committee meeting held on June 28th, and in your packet is the minutes from that meeting.
And so I would have, we have had a clarification of the memorandum of understanding for the single 12-hour shifts. There was a language issue that we didn't catch. So there was just a change in the language issue to make sure that these single role paramedics are made whole with respect to the same salary that they had before. And so it was just a little clarification, just a little change. We already have the memorandum of understanding in place. It was just a language change with respect to that to ensure that their salaries would be the same as they were with the previous shifts. And then, of course, we'll do these individually. So looking at item 7A, clarifying the memorandum of understanding, which is currently in the contract for the fire EMS.
I'll move the approval of the clarification of the existing MOU to reflect the existing changes in our packet.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Counselor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item was discussion regarding MEC staffing, and particularly the recreation assistants and lead recreation assistants. We have Brian Silver, Park and Rec Director here.
And thank you, Brian. Good morning. And then after you get done, I'll refer to the other committee members if they have any questions, comments about our personnel meeting with respect to this. Brian, good morning.
Morning, Council. On page 46 of your packet, you will find the letter that I've written you for this position or for adding these part-time positions. These are the part-time positions that will be doing the concession stand, will be doing the ice bumper cars, will be helping with events and everything at the MEC. One of the questions that came up in the personnel meeting is, what does the schedule for the building look like? So on page 47 and 48, you can see a sample scheduling of the building for the week. Now, the schedule in the arena is basically, I have taken 2019's ice usage schedule. Obviously, I don't know what the what teams are going to be practicing when or when high school games are yet. So I just randomly picked the second week in December to give you a snapshot of the building usage. So I went back to 2019 and did the snapshot of ice usage in 2019, merged those two together to give you an idea of what we have. So you'll see Sunday is a normal day of ice usage right now. On Monday, we already have the boardroom rented out for a morning meeting and an evening meeting. On Tuesday, the boardroom is rented out for another evening meeting. Thursday is the day that gets fun. On top of a high school game and practices that are going on in the afternoon, the ballroom will be used for a luncheon and a meeting. And then Friday, we will be hosting a brand-new hockey tournament in addition to a craft fair going on all weekend in the ballroom. This is one of those events that the craft fair is coming in and asking us to have the ballroom accessible to the arena. So those doors will be open. People will be able to freely flow back and forth. For the lunch meetings and the other meetings, those groups are not wanting to have the building function as one big building, but function more as two separate buildings. So those doors will be closed to prevent hockey from crossing over into meeting space. And then I've also provided you a sample of how many staff would be on duty and the times that they are on duty. I know there was the question of, we have 8 utility workers. Can we use those to cover all of these? Remember, this building operates 105 hours a week. Those 8 utility workers are scheduled throughout that 105 hours. So no, we don't have all 8 utility workers at the MEC at any one time. But we never have less than 2 of them there at any one time. So I'll turn it over to the rest of the Personnel Committee for any further discussion and answer any questions that you may have.
I think with one question before we go to Councilor Paulson and Councilor Freely, who are members of the Personnel Committee. These are part-time positions, correct?
Correct.
Up to how many hours a week?
15 to 25.
15 to 25 hours a week. And we have a salary, a matrix attached to that, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So for the counselors that, I know the minutes reflect, but basically, when Brian came before us and just kind of explained how these part-time people would be integrated with the new building, with all the new events, with all the different bookings, also knowing that these part-time employees could open different outbuildings throughout our city, like the Klein Cupoletti building. Is that correct, Brian? So they're crossover employees that will help to fill in gaps wherever needed between 15 and 25 hours. They would be then AFSCME employees at that point, at that part-time mark. And then what would they not be able to go above that 25 hours? I can't remember how we discussed that.
The lead recreation
The lead-
assistant can go above that, but the regular recreation assistants would not.
Okay.
And then we would also still have our seasonal skate shack attendant positions that we would also hire for throughout the outdoor ice time in the winter.
And I appreciate, I had asked Brian to put kind of a little scheduling agenda together so Councilor Bearable especially could see what that looks like, because I know scheduling is such a big issue and how we're going to work this. So I really appreciate you doing that, because that really helps me make sense of what activities are going on, what type of people we are going to need to staff. But for everyone else's edification, we all felt pretty much comfortable at the personnel level, if I may speak, Mayor, for you.
Please do. We're a team.
For Councilor Friedlieb, just the justification, when Sherry was here, we did ask about what the budgetary requirements would be, and she said possibly around 200,000 that she was budgeting for these 10 positions. But with the assumption and with the knowing that the concession stands are actually going to be generating revenue. So that made us all feel a lot more comfortable. It's not like we're adding positions that aren't going to be contributing to the overall revenue stream of the operations of the MEC. So it was our recommendation to move forward with these 10 new positions. Did I
10
get that
recreation
right?
assistants and 2 lead assistant, 2
And
lead
I was just
recreation
speaking to the one
assistants.
agenda item that we're addressing, but yes. So did I miss anything that you guys can think of?
No, I think well said.
Thank you.
Councilor Freely, anything else you'd like to add from personnel? Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Brian, will the concession stands be open during practices and stuff, or is this just, what's the plan for that?
Concession stands will be open during practices. They will not be staffed as heavily during practice time as they will be during game time. And Right now, my staffing matrix that I have in here is just what I perceive that we will need. I don't foresee as many people in the building during practices as we have games. So we ramp up our staffing for games. We'll probably end up having more staff for a high school game than we would a youth hockey game. And we'll also be working with youth hockey as far as, do they want just the lower concession stand open, or do they want 2 concession stands open? So all of those details haven't been worked out, so it's difficult to get a perfect schedule at this point. We'll have a lot of learning and probably a few bumps the first couple of the weeks that we're open, but we do intend to have the concession stands open on a daily basis.
And I appreciate that. I think that the first month or two, the concession, there'll be a period of time where people are used to sending money with their children to have snacks during practice, but I think that's a great idea. I'm very happy to see that. I like that public skating on here is for, looks like almost 5 hours. I think that the 8 to 1 has been a dream of something I've been complaining about since I tried to take Ian skating 10 years ago, so.
You will notice that there is public skating on there, and then there's a new thing
Member
that I
skating.
have on there, member skating. This is an idea that I am throwing out there and still working all the bugs out for, but we have these nice handy dandy cards, and we could sell memberships to individuals. I know we have a large number of retirees. We also have several individuals that are work shift work that would like to skate during the daytime, and we have homeschoolers. So I'm looking at the ability to have a membership that during the down ice time, if you had a membership, you could walk up to the second arena, scan your card, and it would let you in, and you would have access to the ice, rather than us having to staff that for taking individuals $2 or $5 or whatever it is that we're charging. I think if we did a $10 or $20 membership per month to have access to the ice, that would be greatly appreciated by the public and yet another revenue stream for the building.
I really appreciate that, and I can foresee us, we had some discussion about making sure we're providing access to all of our citizens, and maybe there's some scholarships or some sponsorship availability. A company wants to sponsor 20 memberships for underprivileged kids or that kind of stuff. So I love that. I think you're doing great. And then my last question kind of goes to the bumps in the road. This may be premature, but have you established what that process of evaluation is going to look like? How are we going to make sure we're being systematic about looking at the bumps and documenting those?
A lot of communication.
Okay.
Especially once we have our event manager on board, introducing them to all of the building stakeholders, developing that relationship so that when we have a bump in the road, it can be addressed right then and there, that we're not waiting until it becomes a problem, that it's just a little bump and it can be addressed and worked out.
And are you, I don't remember, you meet regularly with your staff now as a group, don't you? Or
Yes,
you
but that's gonna have
attempt to?
That's gonna have to up here with the new building, especially with all of the changes and the new things that are going on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Brian.
Okay, let's get back to the recreation assistants and the 2 lead recreation assistants for the MEC. We did have a personnel committee. It was moved unanimously by the personnel committee to bring before the committee meeting for discussion of hiring these assistants as recommended by staff. So right now, we're at this level and looking for additional council action to move this to the council meeting for final approval. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move to approve, or to move forward with 7B, hiring of recreation assistants up to 8, is that correct? Or up to 10, excuse me. And then the second one, though, we have to do separately, is that correct? The lead recreation assistants, or are we going to do those? Do we need to have discussion on the lead before we, okay, so I will wait for my motion.
Okay, very good. we'll do two motions then. A motion by Counselor Paulson, supported by Counselor Johnson, to hire up to 10 recreation assistants for the MEC. Is there any further discussion on that matter?
Mayor, I'd like to also point out that at the Personnel Committee meeting, we did talk about being competitive with the wages in the area, so we did increase the wage on this position to $17 per hour,
Right, and that's reflected in the
reflected in the job description.
reflected in the job description moving forward. So thank you for that clarification, Britt.
Just wanted to make sure everybody understood transparency, that this is
Right.
a higher wage.
Yeah, we have to be competitive in that regard. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion about the up to 10 recreation assistants? Hearing no other further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Now we're looking for 2 lead recreation assistants, so I'll refer to Brian Suber, our Park Rec Director, for that, and then to the Personnel Committee for further discussion. Brian?
These are basically the point person for the concession stands and everything in there. Therefore, the hourly rate that was negotiated out is $18, $1 more per hour. They're not the supervisor. That would be the event manager that is the supervisor of these individuals, but they are more the adult and the point person. These positions will end up working more hours and have additional responsibilities as compared to the recreation assistants.
Directing, delegating, organizing,
Communicating that we need to order additional supplies, helping with inventory, rotating stock, those type things.
Okay, thank you. From the Personnel Committee first, and then we'll go to Counselor Johnson, who has his light on. Counselor Paulson. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So Brian, in red, it's on page 50, and it's in the job description. That is the lead recreation assistant job description, continued down, is that correct? Yeah.
That is correct.
Okay, it says, it's crossed out in red, scheduled up to 20, between 15 and 25 hours. I thought when we originally had discussed this, it was up to 30. Okay, so, and then it can go beyond the 30? If as needed. So does that change the position of the status of a part-time versus a full-time?
It's a cumulative over the year, so if it becomes to be where they're working over 40 all the time, then we will have to change that status of that person.
Okay, so an AFSCME was comfortable with that, Scott? Oh, okay, all right. So just that was the one clarification before moving forward. And then the training requirements, just so the council will know, we added those. They will be required to be able to obtain those certifications, and that's to keep more the safety factor in place as they are leading a team, that they would have all those proper safe sport, CPR. I don't know what AWARE is. I'm not
That's
familiar.
our workplace reduction, accident reduction,
Okay.
safety related.
And
Safety
then
training.
Serve Safe for the city, crowd control and management, right to know. So I appreciate you putting those in there, and I just wanted clarification for the rest of the council that these employees will be trained in for the benefit of the facility and the safety going forward of that facility management. So with that being said, as long as we change that up to that 30 hours, and with the understanding of knowing that if those two employees would work 40 hours, that definition would have to change.
Okay, thank you. There's no motion at this point in time. We'll wait for that motion, further discussion before the motion moves forward for the leads. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, can you clarify more this says reports to the manager, but can you explain to me how the interaction between the recreational assistants and the utility workers? My concern or my wonder is a utility worker going to decide they don't want to do something and go to a recreation assistant and say, I want you to do this? I want to know how that's going to balance out.
Now, these individuals will not be reporting to utility workers. There may come a time where, say, tournament weekend, there's a lot of ice to make and everything, and our utility workers may be having to bounce back and forth between the arenas, and if it's craft show, there should be limited things to do for, but say it's a wedding, and they need something changed or set up, adjusted, that's when the event manager would go to the recreation assistants to have them help. In addition, we could possibly have a recreation assistant that is scheduled, not in the concession stand, but scheduled to be assisting with the event, to help with the garbage cans and to be walking around with a spray bottle and a squeegee in their hand to be cleaning all the windows and touch surfaces. So that's how those would work together.
Thank you.
Or we could end up creating a housekeeping department to take care of that.
Right, thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Brian, so I'm looking for council action with respect to the recommendation that came out of personnel through staff about hiring 2 lead recreation assistants for the MEC. Moved by Counselor Freelieb. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Bearable. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
One quick question, if I may, before we go to the Park Department team leader position. Well, before I forget, because I probably will. I got a lot of calls for some about the seating at the MEC, the blue seats. Are they going out for bid somewhere? Are we going to sell those, or what are we going to do with them?
We already put those out for bid, and some of them sold, the rest of them, the demo contractor will get.
Thank you very
We
much.
did end up removing a bunch of these seats, and we will be installing them in our warming shacks, replacing the old wood benches that are prone to giving you splinters as you're sitting on them. So we'll actually have some of the old arena seats in the warming shacks for this next winter.
Thank you. I got a call from a couple of news organizations over the weekend about that issue. I don't, so thank you for the clarification. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to digress, but let's move to the next item. Thank you.
And then the next item we discussed at the Personnel Committee meeting was the addition of a team leader in the Park Department. We also have Scott Duranko from ASME here, as well as Brian Silber.
And we used to have team leaders before. We don't anymore. So Brian, would you please convey to the rest of the council what we discussed at personnel?
So this is a position that we had prior to my arrival. It's essentially a person who is on call. We say they carry a pager, although there are no pagers any longer. It's a cell phone that they would have. When we get that 2 a.m. phone call that comes in that a tree is down, that phone call would go to that person, and then they would determine how many people need to be called out, follow the call-out procedures per the city and union contract to get that taken care of, rather than those calls going to myself or Public Works at this point.
And could you please explain to the rest of the council, and Scott, if you have anything to add, please do so. It's how the system, it's a rotating system for team leader?
It's a rotating system. We would have 4 individuals that would bid into this. They'd be on the schedule for 1 week out of the month. So basically that 1 week, they have to stay glued to the phone, stay glued to in town, and be ready to respond to any of those call outs. The monetary increase that they get is only for the week that they are on call. So they are essentially getting an extra hour of pay each day during that week to cover that. In addition, if there are any call outs and they're in that call out range that they end up having to call themselves out, they would get that call out time also.
And of course, as pursuant to the bargaining unit contract, any call-out beyond that is paid at time and a half.
Correct.
As is with all the contracts. Thank you. Anything else from personnel? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you. Just for further understanding, this is also to balance out what goes on at the Public Works with their team leader level, and that we don't have a team leader level at the Park and Rec. So this would
Correct.
kind of give them each a counterpart in order to deal with the call-out situation. So I just wanted to explain that. Thank you.
Yeah, very good, thank you. Okay, any other counselor have any questions, comments, or concerns about that? It was recommendation from staff through personnel and a recommendation from personnel to bring this forward to the committee of the whole meeting for approval to add a team leader position to the park department. So looking for council action to move forward to the next meeting.
So moved.
Counselor Freely moves to approve. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. And the next item on the agenda is review the application for appointment to commissions and boards. The first one is the Library Commission.
And we have one applicant for the Library Commission. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich?
So moved.
Counselor Beyondich moved to hire, and so we say the formal name?
You sure can.
And
Patricia Dahl.
Patricia Dahl, it's moved by Counselor Beyondich to appoint Patricia Dahl to the Library Commission. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The second one is the Epworth, Virginia Airport Authority. We have an application from Mr. Daryl Napper.
And he is the only applicant.
He is the only applicant for our citizen
Okay,
appointment.
thank you.
We'll move accepting Daryl Napper to the Airport Commission.
Moved by Counselor Johnson,
Support.
supported by Counselor Beyondich to appoint Daryl Napper to the Airport Authority Commission. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Who would Mr. Napper be replacing on that board?
We have a vacancy.
There's
nobody
been a
in there right now.
vacancy for a long time. I think Matt Sipla was on it before. He
Was the last
declined
one.
to carry on, and we've been struggling to have a Virginia representative on that authority.
And so this is our Virginia's portion to put into that board.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Further discussion. Counselor Johnson.
Counselor Paulson, Mayor Cuffey and I are the elected officials on there, and this would be the citizen portion of that.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And before we go into building and grounds, it's going to be some rather lengthy discussion here. May we take a break, please, of 5 minutes or so? Thank you. Let's just take a few minutes. For the general public, we already did. Okay, everybody, please have a seat, and we'll continue on with the rest of the committee of the whole meeting. We're halfway through the agenda, but not necessarily halfway through the discussion. So we'll move to then item 9 under Building and Grounds. Britt?
Thank you. Under item 9, we received proposals for management of the Wellness Center. We sent out 14 RFP packets. We received one response from the YMCA. The response is in your packet.
Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Not that I want to open the lid off this baby,
Let's
but
go.
let's do it. So the only thing that I see really changed on, from what the original submission is there's no requirement for members to be a YMCA member. And then there is a financial actual definition in the, what is it? I don't think it's an MOU, it's probably a professional services agreement that the city would agree to pay the YMCA $1,600 per month to manage that and put some programming in there. And again, I guess I can't support this because we just got done approving 10 part-time positions at $17 an hour with the caveat that these recreation assistants would be, their hourly rate of pay would be offset by revenue generated by the concession stands. So again, I cannot see or understand why the city should be paying an entity to manage a wellness fitness center when that fitness, I guess, when that company would be collecting all of the revenues. So on top of the city paying $1,600 a month, the YMCA would be collecting all of the revenue that's generated from memberships with the caveat, I think it was clear with the day passes, Brian, and the day passes were still, this is new, they would be split? Is that the way I understood that in this contract? It was a little confusing to how those day passes, what was going to be determined on that.
And Chad is on his way over here, so I'm going to wait until Chad gets here and have him address that directly.
And I think, I don't want to not be supportive of the Y. I want to be supportive, and I feel that the reason we didn't get any other people to participate in this is because they were not able to really understand how they were going to generate revenue and the logistics of what they would have to actually charge the city. So I'm going back to the exact issue that we just got done approving 10 part-time people when we have a revenue generation coming from the concession stands. My feeling is that we would have probably a far greater revenue coming in from day passes and specific memberships, and possibly need only 3 employees to run this type of operation with the hours that would be open for this wellness center. So I'd love to hear from other counselors, but at this time, I cannot absolutely see paying a company to manage and then not collecting any of the revenue.
Yeah, thank you. I think we'll ask for a little more information to speak from our Park and Rec Director. I see Chad's here from the YMCA for him too as well. I think that, just a brief history for the general public's edification. We did vet this out. Chad was here from the YMCA making a presentation, and we asked some very tough questions, and you were very professional in your approach to things, Chad. We appreciate that very much. I know it was difficult to sit up there and listen, to all the concerns that we had, but I think we were able to vet things out. As a result of that meeting, there was a motion to go out for RFPs for other entities to come in. We received none other than the one from the YMCA. So we're back here again today, and so we're looking for some additional information. We have in our packet the proposal that you brought in on Friday, And we were able to look at that over the weekend. Hopefully, most of us were. And here we are now. Once again, Chad, you're here for the YMCA, so welcome. And once again, let's go through this one more time.
All right, my apologies for being late. I had other meetings planned when I realized I was on the agenda here, so got here as quick as I could. I guess I'm not sure where you're at with questions.
We
You have
just
my
started.
RFP in front of you?
We just
Julian
started.
had a question
Okay.
about the splitting of revenue.
Specifically?
The revenue
Day
stream,
passes.
the 1,600, go ahead, Julianne.
Okay,
Counselor Paulson.
so I'm coming at it, Chad, again. I can't see why the city should be paying out the money and not be collecting the revenue. I can't get over that. I feel like what we just got done doing is we just approved 10 part-time employees at AFSCME, starting at AFSCME wages, $17 an hour, knowing that we would have revenue coming from the concessions that these employees would now be in charge of and responsible for managing. So what I look at that wellness center as a potential revenue generator. And my question is, how is that city, I know this is, the only thing different really in this proposal is the $1,600 a month and the Y, it's not required to be a Y member. So that's the changes, kind of basically in a nutshell. And then the
Those were in the previous discussions. That's always been there, at least the last time I was sitting in front of you. I approached it also from the revenue standpoint, because as a business, I got to make sure I can comfortably operate this place. And that's what I tried to reflect in that RFP, that if you look at the industry standards, industry numbers, total availability in our community and what can be done, I can comfortably reach a certain membership number, and that doesn't quite make it in that first year. So that $1,600 a month is what I need and what I fell short on when I looked at a pro forma for what I would be able to operate using a member services representative that would man that facility the entire time it's open, and a wellness director that would commit at least a minimum of 20 hours a week at the facility on site. So when I did all that and looked into that numbers and crunched those numbers based on my current membership prices, which are based on many years of operating up here and what our community will afford, can afford, or likes to afford for a membership base. So I used our numbers, which are also in that packet for you. When I do the math, I come short. And that short is about $20,000 in that first year from what I think I can comfortably achieve in membership, so I have revenue back in order to just break even with those basic expenses that I would incur at the current agreement, which would be, I'm just operating it, you guys are supplying the equipment, opening up the facility. I'm missing a few numbers, but those numbers are something that would have to be generated or might not even be known exactly yet because the place isn't operating, but that's that total cost of operation, that footprint cost. That's where you have to factor in your use of toilet paper, water, fitness cleaning supplies, electricity, air conditioning, heat during all those seasons. This is stuff that I generate on a footprint cost to develop those numbers at the YMCA so that I can accommodate my operating business and break even there as a nonprofit. So excluding those, making a rough guess on those, is where I come up with that I would need 299 or about 300 memberships that I think I can achieve out of the population with what's remaining available. This is something that we in the industry take a look at all the time. What's available for the number of people that could and would and probably would engage in a membership in a fitness activity. Now, I don't know the exact membership numbers of all the other competitors in town, but just based on what I have at the YMCA already, which is a little over 2,000 members, and by basic industry standards and using the holy grail of 30% accomplishment within an area that's shared by everyone, I got 50% of the group already. Now, I figure the other entities out there have captured people of that as well, so I think I can comfortably hit that 300 mark, but that's a break-even point.
Please continue, Counselor Paulson, and then we'll go to Counselor Freelieb, and then over to Counselor Johnson, and then to the audience, Ms. Mackey. Go ahead,
Thank you,
Counselor
Mayor.
Paulson.
So then when I come to the agreement, sorry, I read this and then I lose place of where it's at. Regarding the day passes, it's item 5B, daily use passes will be tracked based on their origin and can be used at either location. So I still am not understanding how this is going to generate a revenue for the miners, for the MEC.
Yeah, what I have out in front of you isn't generating revenue for the MEC. I'm saying that the MEC's going to operate at a loss. That's what I look at it. For you to operate, it's going to operate at a loss.
Well, so
Unless you create a price point, a membership structure, and your own business entity within it, but you put an RFP out asking for somebody to put a proposal to come and run this for you. And my numbers are what I can do as the YMCA for you.
Sure, and that MOU, I mean, the RFP that went out stated that it could either be a lease, a lease for the space, and do the programming accordingly to whomever was going to lease the space, or what you have proposed is the way that you put forward. Now, if you're saying 300 members at, like the adult membership, I think is $41, that's $147,000, $147,000 a year.
Correct, yep.
In revenue. So this is where I'm having just a really difficult, I can't jump the shark at this point because our finance director just okayed a $200,000 budget for 10 part-time AFSCME employees at $17 an hour, and that's for 10 people. So I'm really struggling. Why should we be paying the $1,600 a month and not getting any revenue, and then still not quite understanding how the allocation of those day passes, so if they buy a day pass at the Y, it goes to the Y, but if they buy a day pass at the MEC, it goes to the MEC? I'm not clear on that at all.
No, the day passes and memberships are all structured where the YMCA would take that revenue to cover the cost of our expense to run it. I'm just looking at, like I said, I don't even know the other operating costs. I'm looking at strictly staffing it.
Sure.
I don't know if the city has a number yet on if you were to run it. What would it cost you to meet your RFP requirements of having a director of 20 hours minimum, which you probably need a lot more than that. You need a full-time employee, which is something we discussed in much earlier conversations with the city, as well as you need somebody to man and staff that facility. My number for that is $147,000. I need 299 individual memberships to cover that cost of that expense that I'm putting out for that employees to be there to operate that. So I'm operating on just that expense, which is what I'm offering. Now, I'm running shy on that. I think that's a rough, tough number to reach, is what I also tried to share in that RFP, so those who aren't in the business of recreation can understand that we don't have an infinite number of people to capture. It is a guessing game on how many we can. My comfortable level is to reach 300 new memberships in order to cover that expense.
And I think I think that we're just dealing in unknowns here, and I think that's really frustrating for me. We now have 3 different communities that are merging into one high school, one entity for public education, and also sports that will be utilizing that facility, which does, in my opinion, give a larger, broader draw or larger, broader base to actually draw from for folks using that wellness center and using
So you'll
the walking
notice in the
track.
RFP that I created and shared with you the community overviews and data that I collected and utilized, which does include that area. It's a 12-minute drive space, which is the average industry standard in the Midwest, that most people, through a variety of research studies, won't travel any farther than that to engage in an actual facility.
Right.
So that does include Eveleth, up towards Britt, out towards the Hibbing area. If you look at that map, it'll show you exactly what we included, which does include those communities that are combining into that
Right.
school area.
And I read that. I'm just saying for parents that actually come, and they're going to bring their child from Gilbert for hockey practice, and that those parents are a captive audience that, normally a lot of us just either sit and watch our children participate in the activity, or we're walking around trying to get some physical activity. So you do have kind of a captive audience there. Parents are going to stay the duration while their child is practicing. That being said, I want to let other people finish, but I cannot wrap my head around going forward with the way that this proposal sits right now.
Well, part of my challenge to reaching those memberships is something that keeps coming up, but when I look at that facility, I've been in there multiple times. When I look at that facility, there's going to be a challenge to gaining memberships for that. It's going to be a very tight audience. There is no space to offer child watch. So that parent you talk about means their only child is down there on the ice so that they can free themselves up to come use that facility. If they have a second or third kid with them, there's no place for that child to go in order to utilize that facility, as well as anybody else. I also look at the challenges of large group space exercise. In my facility, we have showers and things like that, but a noon workout concept, let's just take a noon workout for example, and if I have 10 participants in a class who are all doing this workout between their job, I look at the availability of locker room and shower room space, that's not how possible. That means they've got to be willing to come and work out at a class and not be able to shower and clean up to go back to work. These are all factors that went into that. How many people do I think can I attract to that? What age bracket is going to be allowed in there? We already know that it's going to be at least 13 or 14 years old because nobody allows 13 or 14 younger than that into a fitness space for safety and health reasons. So I already got to take that out of that total population of about 17,000 people that's capturable, but that's a number from 0 to 95. So I draw those numbers down. I also look at those who are active older adults but may no longer be active, might not be interested or able or capable of utilizing a facility like this and engaging in it, so I drop that number down. And then right now, there isn't a place in the country that has reached 30% of its population. That's why I call that the Holy Grail. In our industry, we know that you have achieved what very few people can ever possibly achieve, which is 30% of your total usable population actually beginning a membership with a fitness facility. So that 30% number is around that 4,000 total people. I'm already capturing over 2,000 of those people. The rest of that remaining number is sitting out there with the other competition that's out there. The other businesses that offer fitness facilities. Now, how much of that is there is a guessing game. Yes, I do not have their numbers in their data, but I have to assume that they have a few hundred people in order to keep their business afloat, because I do understand what it costs to maintain that equipment, operate a facility around the average square footage size, because I've been in most of those places.
Okay.
Which leaves only so many people left.
Thank you. Quickly, I was remiss, Matt, I'm sorry, I should have moved your item up 15 earlier before we entered this discussion. We'll get you next on the agenda. Thank you very much. And I guess we have three options here.
Yeah.
You know, go with the RFP, run it ourselves, or not even have a fitness facility. So that's where we're at right now. Councilor Freely.
I'm hoping this frog is gonna let me talk, but so as far as like local, regional, reputable entities, I don't think you can find anything better than a YMCA to be associated with, from my perspective. I think you've given us realistic projections with regard to what we can anticipate with membership, given our community and its population. I like the wording in the proposal with the $1,600. I look at it as this, like these funds will be restricted to supporting the YMCA operations and expenses for the MECC Wellness Center, which means it's being reinvested by us into our own facility. So it's like, yes, we're paying for it, but it's paying us back. And we just hired 12 people that were going to be overseeing concession stands with significant projections for increased revenue from those concession stands. That was talked about at the Personnel Committee. So I think we have the possibility to balance out, even if we project a loss in the Wellness Center, the possibility of balancing that out from revenue from the concession stands is a realistic potential to bring us back to even at some point in time. And we know for a fact that the MEC itself is going to be running in the red for many years. I mean, we hope less than two or less, but the potential is for more than that. And we have other facilities in this community that have run in the red for many, many years. So we need to provide this facility to the community. We promised it to the community. It doesn't appear like it's reasonable for us to be able to run it ourselves with our own personnel that's hired by the city. And I like the work you've done, Chad. I think you've done a good job providing us the information necessary. And I know that there are certain arguments with regard against that, but the whole 16, we talked about that. Should we be paying somebody to do this for us? In essence, yes, that's what we're going to be doing, but it's investing in that facility, reinvesting it on behalf of us, which potentially could increase membership then because of that continued use and upkeep and maintenance of the facility being top notch. So I'm in favor, given the fact that we've heard from him several times already. Nobody else has proposed anything to us. And I think the association with the local YMCA would be a benefit to our facility, to be honest with you. So I'm in favor of moving forward and tweaking it accordingly so that we can all be at least comfortable with where we're going. But thank you for the time and effort you put into it so far.
Thank you. Before we go to Councilor Johnson, you're paying for the equipment. You're putting the equipment in. You're operating the facility. You're doing the maintenance on this stuff. Is that correct?
That's not my understanding.
Okay, fair. That's what.
City was putting the equipment in.
Okay, very good.
But you get the benefit of using the YMCA, which.
Yeah, but we're responsible for all that maintenance too as well. So above the $1,600 a month, we're paying for this as well. So, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the duration of this professional services agreement?
I understand we don't have an official one, but if I use the one that has been through this council multiple times, that's why I shared it as something that we've already put a lot of work into prior to an RFP, which is a little backwards in operation, is it's free-flowing, and anybody can exit out at any time if it's under that operating concept.
So there's.
We can set a timeframe, reviewed once a
And-
year.
And my question is, my thought process here is exactly what everybody said mostly. We don't know at all. We're making this up and hoping that we're at least close. It's probably going to take a year to get all the bumps worked out again. You may find that in 6 months that you have to have 2 staff on because it's that busy at the miners. Who knows? Or that, so that, and that's why I don't want to be locked into something for 3 years if we need to change it in a year. And that's why I asked that question about that. Because I think we are at a point where, for myself, I want to move forward, and I think that this is the best option. It may not be the absolute greatest option, but it is the best option we have in front of us, knowing the amount of work it's been put in. I would be interested in knowing from the other entities that did tour why they did not put in a RFP from them. And I know that has nothing to do with you, Chad. But from a business point of view, I'm pretty sure running the Y is like running a daycare center. If you break even, you're having a really good year. Simply because people do not value necessarily what it takes behind the scenes. They don't understand the extra training and that kind of stuff. So for us as a city to start this experiment at $1,600 a month and see what happens, lack of, as the mayor said, doing nothing and having 3 empty rooms in that facility, I think this is the best option to go for. I know that we gave Brian direction when this whole process started 2 years ago that, yep, we were comfortable with him working with you at the Y, and to see what that would look like. I don't recall that long ago asking if we wanted him to be checking with other people. I don't remember that. I don't think we did, but I feel like that as a council, that's the direction we gave 2 years ago or whenever the groundbreaking happened and we actually went, oh, this is going to happen. I think that as we move forward, we need to continue to realize that this is going to change and that the communication, I like the communication that the two of you have had, and that there may be times when we need to have meetings, cooperative meetings with your board and our council may need to get together and have discussions. And I think this agreement allows for all of those things to happen. So I'm comfortable, for lack of any other options at this point, but because of all the work that's put in, I think this is the right route to take at this time, and that we need to allow you to actually formally move forward with it so that we can be ready, hopefully in September, to be operating as normal as possible when we do everything else in September. So I'll be supporting this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Before we go to Councilor Bearable, if this gets approved, there's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot before we get to the point where we're going to actually sign a contract. And and all the same questions I had that Councilor Paulson had. In addition to that, we'll have to make some recommendations on how you run it, who has access, and who has to pay for what access. And the example I gave is the walking track. I don't think, and that comes part of the negotiation, that any citizen of the city of Virginia who wants to come in has to pay $5 to walk around the walking track. I just don't get that. So, so those kind of things have to be worked out. I think they can be under the quote that you provided, moving forward with the specifics of that. So those are some of the thoughts that I have moving forward. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, everybody's overlooking the fact if we don't have somebody in there managing and looking after that with employees. You have to have employees for safety reasons in this issue. You have to have for all the functions that are there, in there. We'd be paying, one employee for the city of Virginia is a minimum of $71,000 a year. We're looking at $20,000 to do an experiment with the YMCA for a year for a person managing. The part-time employees that I see listed here are coming out of your budget, correct? That'll be correct. So you can't run it just as one employee because there's going to be multiple things going on at multiple times in this facility. And I'm dead set against any charges on that walking track or running track, how they're going to use it, because our citizens are expecting that as part of what we promised when we put this together, we'd have that indoors for them when we push this through the legislative process and stuff. So I'm going to be supportive of this. The length of contract, I would say we start out with a year with a renewable, with a review within 90 days of the contract going null and void in a year, and relook at it then and see how it's going. But I'm going to support this because it's going to cost us more money than what we're going to be paying you to operate. There's no question about it. There's OSHA things involved. You can give us a huge discount through the YMC for equipment, but that equipment in an agreement would belong to us.
Yes, it would.
Correct? Okay.
Yep, you'll just get my buying power.
Okay, so, and that's a huge benefit, because I know how expensive that stuff is, especially when you get the equipment that'll last.
This facility would be close to $50,000 in savings.
Yeah. So there you go. I'll be supportive of this. I think we should at least try it out. We didn't get any other offers. We don't need to go back again. We've done that. We need to get this stuff ordered, the equipment ordered. It's not here yet. And hopefully we can still get it on time for an opening of that facility. That's another question mark right now, as shoulders are getting with time to open in September.
Answer that if you'd like.
Yes, please.
It'll be very unlikely we can have equipment in time for a September opening. We're already past any kind of expected due date where we can achieve that with the COVID-19 challenges with finding equipment and parts and pieces. It'll be more realistically opening before the first of the year would be a goal that we can make. I'm already ordering equipment for the Y and upgrading the Y with all of my equipment, which is part of my grand 30,000-foot view of this mech and the Y combined. And I'll be lucky if I can get that stuff, which is already ordered. I'll be lucky if I get it by this fall, September. So doing anything past 2 weeks ago is only delaying that even further.
And I agree with
So on
you.
realistic expectations that it will be very tough. Our reps are working as hard as they can. We'll do the best we can, but no upfront.
And I'm seeing that. I'm trying to put a generator household system in my household, and I'm already almost 40 days behind, and they don't know when it's coming yet for my whole household. An outside system that automatically starts because of delays in manufacturing and delays in deliveries. So I know where you're coming from.
Usually the equipment that I ordered is sitting half done in the factory waiting for a particular part to continue the process.
Yeah.
So this is what we're facing in the country with this kind of stuff, and putting that large of an order, you're looking at, $140,000, $150,000 worth of equipment. Could be a very lengthy time to get it all put together.
Thanks for being honest with us on that. But I think this is a worthwhile, I'll say community, and different community endeavors, not just Virginia, because this is going to be used by the area.
Yep.
I don't think we can make a cash flow if we have our own employees either, because we're going to need more than just one person to monitor because of safety factors. OSHA will be coming in there looking at stuff, all this stuff. So that's my philosophy. Thank you.
Okay, just quickly before going to Ms. Mackey, I have some experience running a facility, a fitness facility, like we're going to have at the MEC. I ran the police gym down in the metro area. They sent me to school for that. The Cooper Institute of Aerobics in Dallas, the Institute for Police and Fire Fitness. I mean, it took a lot of training, a lot of certifications in order to have the opportunity to operate that facility. And I get where you're coming from. But it's not just the $1,600 a month. It's not just the cost of putting together, buying the fitness equipment based upon the budget, which is within the budget. It's operating, it's the maintenance of that facility. Because and the question would be in your quote, and I hate to belabor this, but I think it's necessary to know that you have So say, for example, we had a Precor treadmill. We had 4 of those in the fitness facility. And we were running those Precor treadmills. And every time that treadmill got used, the individual used it, the card holder or the employee would have to write down how long they used that equipment. And the purpose was that to ensure that the maintenance and upkeep of the equipment and any professional services agreement we have with a company to fix the treadmills or to fix the para-body free weight equipment or the LifeStep stair climbers or the Stairmasters or everything that we had in there, we had to have an agreement with them and a maintenance agreement. So there's a cost associated with that. So it's not just the $1,600 a month we're paying here. We're paying for the equipment and the maintenance and the upkeep of that equipment as well. So when you're looking at the figures that, the cost to operate, you have to factor those in as well. Thank you. And we do have the luxury of having a member of our community here. So I'm going to let Jean chime in. Ms. Mackey, you have any questions or comments as we move forward?
Thank you, Mayor Cuffey, for the privilege. In response to Councilor Paulson, there is one position that Chad has offered under YMCA management that the city would be hard pressed to find, and that is a health and wellness director. And they have the experience, they have the training. I think they are best equipped both for management of the facility as well as managing how people are using it and the benefit they're getting out of it. I think they are, as they say, non-pariah, P-A-R-E-I-L. And also, I am president of a Minnesota nonprofit corporation, Virginia Area Historical Society. It is a nonprofit corporation, which means that we need to balance our income versus our program. If we don't have sufficient income, we can't run the program. If we know what the income is, we can then plan program, but those two things must be in balance. So it is a nonprofit, and that may be what the MEC ends up being. We hope it's a revenue generator, but that's for the future to see. I would very much encourage all of you, councilors, Mayor Cuffey, to support this proposal before you today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I see that Councilor Barnzelli has his light on. Go to Councilor Barnzelli before I call for some city council action. Unless there's some more significant discussion, I think we will have one more from Councilor Freely. Councilor Barnzelli.
Mayor, I support his program, the way he's come to us a year ago, like Carl Barrow said, and I think you're doing a good job to keep this thing running. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Freely.
I don't think you were here for the conversation with regard to the primary utilization of the MEC facility, which will be hockey. And upwards of 80% of the time allotted is through Baja and high school hockey, historically. This is a different building, I understand that, but there has to be a realistic expectation on the part of whoever runs this fitness facility that they're going to have to schedule accordingly because there's an anticipation by Baja to continue to have access to the utilization of those facilities for dryland training. And so that's going to be a challenge for whoever is going to be in charge of this facility to be able to run the kind of programming you envision to be able to do, but blending that with the primary utilization that's already in that building and will be a significant generator of revenue for us because of the programming they bring in. So I don't know if you've been talked to about that, but that's a significant concern for me because they have an expectation now with the loss of the back rink to transition that over to the new facility. And that's going to be a challenge if we have a contracted entity that's running that facility and doesn't acknowledge that to the level that they're expecting. So I just want you to be aware of that.
We're fully aware and totally comfortable with working in support of Baja. The YMCA's mission is to be supportive. That's why we're even at the table or been involved in the MEC for the last several years, and you've seen me at every meeting from the first public support meetings, is to make sure that this facility is accessible to all, whether it's VAHA or any age, financial, race, ethnic, demographic in our area. That is something that we hold very dear and true to our hearts. That's also why we are a nonprofit that operates at a very tight level, because we give away a tremendous amount of money to make sure that nobody is turned away from utilizing YMCA facilities. So I always envision that as being a benefit to this city, that if we were operating that, we carry that same mantra into there. We have that same philosophy that everybody will have access to this, nobody will ever be turned away from utilizing it, and we'll balance that out. And then multi-collaborative programming is kind of where YMCA's are footed in. We are always looking for new spaces, new organizations, and new groups to engage with and work with. So it's something that I'm comfortable with and our YMCA can work with.
Okay, thank you. I know this is a little unusual, and there is no motion on the floor at this point in time. If it's all right with the council, I'd like to just hold that discussion just in advance momentarily and bring item 15 up so Matt can get out of here. It's item 15, which is to discuss the Ridgewood Rink Hockey Board installation quote. It looks like this conversation will go a little bit longer than we had originally anticipated, and it should. So if it's all right with the council, I'd like to just hold that in advance and then move this up real quick. Thank you. Chad, if you have to say, Brian?
In your packet on page 94, as you are well aware here, many moons ago, when we were discussing the demolition of the miners and repurposing things, City Council had suggested that we look at relocating the back rink boards. I believe Councilor Friedlib was the one who made that suggestion, and finding a place on outdoor rink that they could be moved to. SEH has looked at each of our rinks or each of our existing outdoor rinks, and the one rink that we have enough space to put a NHL-sized sheet of ice at is the Ridgewood rink. Our staff has removed the boards from the back rink so that they can be reinstalled, and SEH has gotten some pricing for having footings and foundations poured so that those boards can be installed at the outdoor rink. And we had one company that was able to commit to doing that, and that would be Lency here in town. So I'll let Matt speak some more on this.
Sorry, guys. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate
Yeah, I
you
realize
bumping
that,
us up.
yeah, and it was my error for not bringing it up right away.
No problem. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Yeah, so we solicited for quotes to get this work done. This is basically to put some footings in so that they have something to attach the boards to. The boards would stand out there by themselves as they're constructed, but they're gonna start moving and bending. And so, when Brian and I talked about this, we actually did this, we've probably done it on several, but me personally, I did this on one other rink, outdoor rink that I've been involved in. It seemed to work pretty good. So it's just a small 18-inch by 4-inch deep or 6-inch deep footing that they put around, and then they have something to actually attach the boards to. So what this is, Lency was the only responsive contractor, and they put a bid in of $27,827 to put the footings in. That would be grading and actually getting the concrete in and reinforcement and everything and constructing the footings. And then Brian had me ask all of the bidders to give a price to actually install the boards, and I'm not gonna speak for his guys, but there may be an opportunity if the price is too high and he can decide or you guys can decide what that price threshold is, but they did provide a price of $12,140 to actually install the boards as well. So, as I said, we did request from three different bidders. This is the only one that we got a response back from. They're all pretty busy right now.
Thank you. Recommendation, Brian?
Our staff does have the ability to put the boards back in, so what I would like to see us do is just approve bid A.
Thank you.
I'd make a motion to move forward with bid A, given that's a budgeted item. That was an anticipated.
It was not a budgeted item.
And so where would we be getting the funds to do that?
That's the $1 million question.
Well, it's a $27,000 question.
Yes.
Weren't we under budget on the demolition dollars for the tear down on the asbestos and stuff out of the miners, isn't there extra money there that we can use? Because that was way under budget.
Was?
Well, we can move forward
Yeah.
with the approval, provided we can find the funding.
That's what my motion was,
That was
that
the
I would
motion.
seek to move forward with this, provided funding is available.
Okay, thank you. And to answer Counselor Bearbo's question, is there money to be looked at?
We will verify that before the council meeting.
We're going to get all that money back from the state in August. I mean, we're going to have, for that small amount of money, do it right the first time. Otherwise, in 2 years, those boards will be all over.
Okay, thank
Nowhere.
you. Okay, thank you. And then it's Counselor Freelieb's motion is to move forward with it, provided we can find the funding for it on A.
I'll support for discussion.
Supported by Counselor Paulson for further discussion. Further discussion, Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. Just the one quick question I had, NHL size, what does that do to the existing little off skating portion? I don't know if you call it figure skate or family skate.
Yeah. It would that rink would all just become a skating rink that has boards around it. So there wouldn't, right now we have a small section with boards, which our plan is to move those boards up to Midway. And which Midway right now is just an open area, so it would be open area with boards. Now Ridgewood would just have a big sheet of ice there with boards around it.
So there'd be no offside family skate area.
Correct.
That's concerning to me.
Brian, is that,
Well, safety, if you have little kids and they're playing
One at a time. Go ahead.
a hockey game. If kids are on there playing a hockey game and a mom wants to come and have their little kids skate, they're not going to be able to skate while there's a hockey game going on.
And what we will end up doing is outside the boards from the skating shack to that area, we're going to have some flooded areas there. So there are going to be some smaller areas, but the predominant area would be inside those boards. That does not mean that youth hockey or organized hockey is going to take place out there on a regular basis. This is just giving us more of a structured board system. Also enables us to start like a shoe hockey or a broom hockey league for adults in the area.
I completely understand that, but when there's game-centric, whether it's be broom hockey or boot hockey or regular hockey, little people are not going to be able to enjoy that outdoor space.
And we can continue to look at expanding or flooding an area outside of it, like where the current hockey boards sit in that area as a recreational skate area.
I mean, as long as that, I don't have little kids anymore. I mean, I have kids that utilize indoor, but I'm just thinking people do utilize Ridgewood for little kids. They really do in the winter. So with that caveat being said, if that can be done and there can be a space, I'm fine with moving forward. But if we're really changing the community's utilization for that space specifically to hockey and not for a family skate or, recreational skate, I don't think I'd be in favor of that.
Even with the current setup, with that small hockey area, hockey ends up occurring outside of those boards on a regular basis anyway.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. There wasn't a second yet. So is there a second before we have further discussion?
There was a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, there was a second then, as I asked. Okay, there was a second. So further discussion, which I thought this was going to be Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there an opportunity for a local business to sponsor this rounded $30,000 if they wanted to put their name on that rink?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. So it has been moved and supported to move forward with this to the next city council meeting. If there's any additional information or discussion, we can take place there. But to move it from here to the city council meeting, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion?
Just real quick.
Counselor Barnzelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I've talked to hockey players now since this transaction took forward, and they are excited over there. There's 2 other rinks in Virginia, I mean, I'm not trying to say that this is just for hockey, but this is a big sheet of ice. Thank you.
There's a lot of space there to, to accommodate public skating, as Councilor Paulson alluded to. Councilor Freely.
It's a very legitimate concern because I would like to see a continued separation of space between the recreational skaters and the hockey. Would this new rink now be still facing east and west, or is it going to have to go north and south? It'll have to go north and south. So this is bigger than the original rink that was there,
Yes.
significantly. So realistically, we will not be able to provide that additional recreational space.
Now, where to the east of the hockey boards, we would be able to flood a smaller area. But it's going to change from big public skating area, small hockey area, to big hockey, smaller public skating.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. Is there any other discussion with respect to this quote? It's been moved and supported. Councilor Bearable.
I don't know why we're making such a big deal. I spent 10 years out in West Evlith when I was a kid where they scheduled. Remember the word scheduled. Hockey, and they scheduled open public skating. They can do the same thing at any of these rinks in Virginia and still have satisfactory results from the public and accommodate our kids and our girls and boys both directions. You know, it's simple. You just schedule it. We've never had a problem. Unless they're going to fight over it like everything else in this country right now. But we never had a problem. And we had tremendous hockey stuff and tremendous skating programs out in West Elwood where I grew up as a kid. Just schedule it.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Berry. So it's been moved and supported, and we'll go into the next council meeting. So if you could have an idea at the next council meeting, how much space would be available to accommodate, the little figure skating and those kind of things, that would be helpful as we make the final decision at the council meeting.
I can show you a site plan.
Yeah, that would be good. I think that would be beneficial to all of us if we would. Thank you very much. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Brian. And I apologize for the interruption, Chad, but if the next items is going to be some significantly long discussions, I would assume. So please come back forward, and we're back on the track here for item, on the building grounds, item 9. So anybody else? I think Councilor Paulson, I interrupted you when we moved to the to accommodate Matt Reed in the Ridgewood rink. So please continue.
Thank you. Not sure if I can remember my complete train of thought, but that's okay. I guess I just want to echo what Councilor Freelieb said about Vaha. And there was significant discussion. Were you here the day that we spoke with Vaha? When they were at the table here? Okay. So there was some different things tossed back and forth that they would be able to they already had a budget for their own fitness equipment and what they wanted for their needs. And I don't know how we're going to, I think maybe a come to the table meeting needs to happen because they were almost feeling like if they had that, the dryland location, I think is what, Brian, did you identify that as dryland specific, that location, the little L shape? I shouldn't say L, little, but.
And Chad's very well aware of Vaha's expectations and desires for that, and we had worked out the ability to schedule for Vaha-specific use of those areas. So his MOU met all the needs and expectations of Vaha.
Okay, so okay, but the equipment portion does not meet that expectation because they're coming forward in the meeting saying they have a budget for equipment, but the general public cannot be using Vaha equipment. So we need to, liability-wise, we need to iron this out and understand and manage those expectations. Are they going to be given exclusivity? The answer right now that I'm hearing from you both is no. But if they're providing the equipment, how can the community utilize that space?
And even at the meeting, they were saying that they didn't expect exclusivity for those rooms because there's a lot of time during the day
Right.
that the room would not be utilized by them. Very simple way to address it would be the equipment that they have that they want to continue to be used in it. They donate that equipment to the city. It's no longer their property, it's our property. This is already a discussion that we've had with Vaha. In fact, it was their idea to take all the liability off of them. Unfortunately, that equipment has been in that back rink, exposed to moisture and weather, and it's not in the greatest of shape.
Sure.
I don't know if it's something that we want to present, so that's something that
No,
Chad and I
this
will
was a
have to
new
look
budget.
at.
This was a new budget that they already had set aside. They have dollars already fundraised and set aside, according to Dan Rabideau. So we need to iron this out. And if they want to donate, I mean, that's fine, but this is information that you're having conversations, but we're not getting that information from these conversations. So very difficult to make wise choices when we don't have all the information.
And
Because
if we
Vaha
move,
is a very significant player at this table.
absolutely, and if the city council directs us to move forward with the YMCA, Chad and I can easily schedule a meeting with members of the Vaha board to make sure that everybody is on the same page and all issues are addressed.
And I guess I would be fine with that. I'm not in agreement with the way this is drafted. I don't think I can support it, and I apologize, but my expectations from what I've talked to with different community members, their expectations are really different. And this is just rewriting language. It's still going to cost money. And I understand what you're saying, Jean. You know, my point is that we just got done hiring part-time on our concessions, and this is something that I feel like we could manage on our own and understand how space utilization, according to how many employees would need to be hired to offset the costs and with membership, with what that revenue would look like. I also would agree that I don't want the community to pay for a walking track. I do have one little segue, as long as we're discussing this at length. One thing that was brought to my attention from a few of the people that did take a tour was that walking track is going to be utilized by the general public to actually go into their seating, into the main arena. So they will be, little kids and adults alike will be walking across with muddy shoes, tracking sand and dirt into our sponge walking track. And was anything addressed in terms of safety? If you've got elderly people or people actually running on that track, how are we going to maintain that and make sure that that surface stays clean and that that salt doesn't deteriorate that sponge surface? Because we can't, normal expectations is when you're going on a running track, you remove your outdoor shoes and you put running shoes on.
That surface is able to be cleaned with a mop machine. So our riding mop machine will make a couple laps probably after every single event that we have people coming from. That'll be part of the daily housekeeping of the building, is using the mop machine on that track to remove sand, grit, and salt.
Okay, so I think that might be another question for our architect to understand that surface and what the quality of that surface is. Because the fear is the replacement is going to have to be frequent with all of the utilization from our elements of winter here. But anyway, I appreciate you understanding where I'm coming from. And if you can have those discussions with Vaha to make sure that they understand, how the management of this is going to go down, I would be comfortable with that. But I just, at this point, I still can't support it. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. So we have an option to move forward or not. By moving forward with the quote and discussions, we still have to approve the contract. We still have to sign the contract. So any additional information that comes forth would come as a result of that. Now, there's not a motion on the floor at this point in time. And so we have reviewed the proposal from the YMCA management of the Wellness Center. We have no other proposals that came through the RFP. We're back at square one where we were before. Not saying that we're behind the eight ball, but obviously the scheduling issue for the opening of a wellness center is not going to take place as we originally anticipated for the grand opening. And so that's something that's forthcoming. So we have to make a decision today about what we want to do. So I open that up and look for council action.
I would move that we move forward with the proposal from YMCA for the management of the wellness center, with given consideration to the investments we've made for even marketing the building for that. So we've made significant investments already, and the investment we'd be making for this, I think, is nominal compared to some of the investments we've already made. And the potential, well, I'm going on, but my motion is that this is the RFP that's been presented to us, not once, but more than once. Nobody else has approached us, and I think that the entity of the YMCA is very reputable for this region. So I would move that we move forward with what we've been presented.
Support.
I'll support that, Mayor.
It's been moved by Councilor Freely and supported by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Baraboo,
Aye.
Friedlieb,
Aye.
Paulson,
No.
Beyondich,
No.
Johnson,
Aye.
Aaronzelli. Yes. Cuffey.
Aye. And motion passes 5-2. It's required that we have a supermajority and does pass 5-2. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Council. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. May I also suggest we move up number 13 and 14 so we can get Jody back to the library as well?
Okay, let's move 13 and 14 back up for Jody. Thank you.
The first one, number 13, is approved closure of city buildings on August 4th, 2021, from 8:30 to 10:30 for staff development. As I had stated in an email to the council, we had a visit from OSHA regarding workplace safety a week ago. And one of the places we went and explored was the library, and Vicki Harris, I can't think of her last name, from OSHA, suggested we do a short training, about 90 minutes, with the staff at the library on some workplace safety measures. So she's creating a customized training. She'll be back on August 4th. The training will actually be from 9 to 10. And we would like to have all staff from City Hall also attend. So we're asking the approval to close both City Hall and the library from 8:30 to 10:30 so that we can attend that OSHA training.
Well,
Also move that, Mayor.
it shows the library closing at 1 p.m.
That's the next item.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moved by, I'm sorry, Councilor Baraboo and supported by Councilor Freely. I'm sorry, I was reading the other one. So motion by Councilor Baraboo, supported by Councilor Johnson, to approve the closure of the city buildings on August 4th, from 8:30 to 10:30 for staff development. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
And please know the council is invited to attend also if they'd like to come to the training. We'd love to have you there as well. The second one is approved closure library on August 20th at 1 p.m. for staff development. This is a request from our library director, Jody Grabowski.
What day is that?
It's Friday.
Okay, very good, thank you. Jody?
This is the Friday after we finish our big event for finishing summer reading. And the reason for it is actually for a staff debrief. So we can talk about what went wonderful for summer reading, what do we need to work on, what do we want to do next year, because the planning will have to start already. So it's just to give staff time to actually evaluate everything that they've been doing, so.
It's Friday, you close at what time?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, so it'll be from 1 to 5?
Yep, so it'd be for 4 hours.
Okay, thank you. Looking for council action based on this request?
I will move that we allow the library to close for staff development.
Moved by Councilor Johnson and supported by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jody, for your patience.
Thank you.
Back up to item number 10, discuss MEC artwork per the design committee recommendations.
Hey, once again, Brian and the design team.
I'm back. Page 81 of your packet. have some information regarding the artwork for the MEC. Currently, as you may know, we have a call out to local artists to submit artwork for consideration to be used in the new building. That artwork that we are asking artists to submit for will primarily be utilized throughout the event center. The hallway of that event center, the conference room or the boardroom, and the meeting rooms. In other areas of the building, what we are planning to do, and I just wanted to make council aware of the design team's current direction that we are moving in the main lobby, as you enter the main lobby of the arena, we are looking at doing a wall of honor, honoring skaters that have gone on to skate either internationally or professionally. This is both ice figure skaters and hockey players. We are currently looking at honoring 8 individuals. What we will be doing is having a 3-foot wide by 4-foot tall portrait of the individual that is printed on metal. We're hoping that they are all color pictures that we're able to obtain. Then we will have a framed jersey and or outfit that was used for figure skaters, and then a plaque outlining their international or professional career. In addition, in the main lobby, we are also looking at doing a display that honors arenas past in Virginia's history. This would be the old Northland building that was previously used as the recreation building, Ewing's Field that was used as an outdoor skating arena for many years, and the Miners. We have salvaged many items out of the current Miners that we are going to be reincorporating into the new building, honoring our city's past and our region's past. And then once we move upstairs in that mezzanine that we have upstairs, we are looking at having I'm going to call it a mural. It may or may not be painted, but we're still working on the design of it, but a mural on one of those walls up there that has, that outlines the Iron Range and the communities in the Iron Range. Once you walk into the arena, the east-facing wall, and that is in your packet on page 81, the east-facing wall has 11 open spaces on it, and it is our intention to dedicate a space for each of the teams that was a original member of the Iron Range Hockey Conference. We have spoken that this is a regional facility many times, and this is one great way to recognize that regional heritage that we have, because many of those teams no longer exist. They have merged together into other teams. So our intention for opening is just to have the teams listed and the school logo up there, and then it's going to be a big space of empty wall, because our hope is over time that we will be able to work with each of these communities for them to submit pictures to have us install in those areas. In addition, on the west-facing wall, which we'll be talking about here in a little bit, we have the Dwayne Briers mural that is currently in Roosevelt School. We are looking at moving that to the north wall in the arena. And then the west wall in the arena, we are looking at several other historic pictures of days gone by from here in Virginia, looking at a picture of Paget on the first Zamboni in town. We've got several other pictures of children that have grown up and gone on to play college hockey while they were skating on our outdoor rinks that we're considering. So we're looking at the different artwork or the different murals that could be done throughout the arena. I just wanted to bring that to the council today so that you are informed of the direction that the city council is currently going on for the decorations inside the building. A lot of people have asked, can I have this picture or that thing out of the existing minors, like the Cupoletti Arena sign or the Paget Arena sign. Those are all things that we are working on incorporating into the displays in the new building. So we have not given any of those things away because we want to not only continue to honor our city's history, but improve in how we honor our city's history and our region's history.
Okay.
So that's all I had to address the council on for that item today. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And we'll pour more of the council. I just want to add, if you could write down the name, I don't know if you have it, Buddy Lalonde. Buddy Lalonde was a famous figure skater that traveled all over the world. Now, there was years ago, there was a request to put, in the Historical Society for have him put on the wall, but he was denied for whatever reason by that committee. But I think because this is going to the MEC, he's a professional skater, went for all over. And I don't know if you have that name or not. I'm sure.
Do not have that name.
Gene probably has some information for you with respect to that. So I just would like to add his name as some research material as you look at these past and an acknowledgement of past skaters. Gene.
Yes, we have wonderful information on Buddy Lalonde. Before Betty Pond left us, we had a long yardstick on the wall, our ramp going up into the main level, showing the distance that he jumped. And I'm sure that we could retrieve those parts of the exhibit.
Do you still have those skates that was donated? His skates?
Very
I
likely.
think you do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And being on the design team, we just felt it was important to bring everybody up to speed on what we've been working on and let everybody know what is happening and transpiring as we have been attending these meetings and what we're sifting through. So thank you, Brian, for bringing that forward so the council is up to date on what we're doing.
Now, this is exciting. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would echo Councilor Beyondich, and I missed a meeting here and there. However, Brian, I wanted to ask you if you could just clarify for the rest of the council how the design committee arrived at what is going on the east wall. So wasn't it the Iron Range Conference, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so just so everyone understands what the logic is, so if you look in our packet, there's all the different high schools. How many of them? 13, 12?
There were 12
12?
different high schools.
So if you could maybe just clarify that so everyone understands why,
Yeah.
where the thought process was coming
The,
from.
the original Iron Range Hockey Conference had 12 teams, and so we are looking at having each of those 12 original teams listed on that wall, working with those communities to develop the pictures and everything that will go on underneath of there. Right now, what you see in your picture has basically a big school logo. That's not our intention. The school logo will probably be 2 foot by 2 foot and up by the name. Those are huge wall spaces. So a lot like the Heritage down in Duluth, where you had multiple schools come together. They have beautiful displays from each of those schools in years gone by.
Yeah.
We're essentially stealing that idea from them, but doing it for the entire Iron Range Hockey Conference.
Yeah, that's very impressive there. Thank you. Okay, so you're just an update on what we're moving forward with. So we look forward to some more information. Does any councilor have any questions, comments with respect to this? Thank you for updating us, Brian. Thank you for the design team for this. Is some very exciting and it's going to be a beautiful art design work. And so I look forward to seeing that. So anybody else have any questions, comments, or concerns with respect to that? Thank you for the update. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda on the item.
Thank you. The next item is to approve the donation agreement with ISD 2909 for the donation of a mural to the city.
So this is the Dwayne Briers Memorial that I was just talking about that we're looking at putting on that north wall in the arena. That's about the only place that it will fit inside the MEC, probably the only amount of wall space that big inside the city of Virginia that this mural could be moved to. The school is not intending to utilize that mural in their new school, in the design, and so they were looking for some place for that mural to go. Since our facility has taken its inspiration for design from both the timber and the mining industry, that mural, which depicts the history of mining in the area, painted by a Virginia artist, is very appropriate to come in to our facility. So the school has drafted the donation agreement that is in your packet on page 82. The school board has already approved this, and we just need the city council to approve it. We will not have this mural in place for the grand opening. We more than likely will not be moving the mural out of Roosevelt Elementary until at the end of the next school year, because it's very large and we don't want to be moving it while kids are in school. And really the only break that they have that would be able to move it would be Christmas break, and that's not the best time to be moving this artwork cross town in the weather. So we'll be waiting until next summer to move it, and then we'll be able to do a nice dedication ceremony inviting school board members, members of the Breyer family, to dedicate this addition to our facility and honoring the history of our region.
So Brian,
Okay, thank you, Brian. Real quickly, I've received so many telephone calls about this mural. You have to do something to salvage this mural. You have to. Mayor, you talked to the council. He says they're already on board. We're already in process. And I'm surprised how many telephone calls I've received about being able to salvage that very historic piece. So we appreciate the design team and moving forward, putting that in the MEC. Councilor Bearable.
so Brian, that'll be removed before they deconstruct Roosevelt next
Oh,
summer?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably right the week or so after school lets out, we'll be in there. And we're actually going to have to work with some art historians and everything to have it removed appropriately and moved over to our facility.
Councilor Freely.
Yeah, the only concern was the as-is language, so is there gonna be any expense for reconditioning or anything that needs to be repaired on it?
The artwork itself has been protected since they put it behind glass. So that's standard language that's in there. We don't really need to do any touch-up to it. We're just moving the casework that it's displayed in. We will have expense in doing this because we're going to, taking down that casework, moving it all over. Our design team has also discussed the possibility of us changing from just the plexiglass that's there to non-glare plexiglass, so that right now when you're looking at the artwork, you get glare from the light, which distracts from the enjoyment of viewing the artwork. If we were to upgrade to non-glare glass, that would make the artwork easier to view.
There may be contingency money still available to cover the cost of this?
We hope so, yes. If not, with it being in the next budget year, we'll throw some money in the budget to be able to do this.
Of all the worthwhile investments that we make in this city, that's one of the worthwhile investments that we can make. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And as a design team member, I think this was really one of the most exciting things that has come across for us to actually be able to have this opportunity. So I want to thank you, Brian, for all the work that you've done, and and just getting in the formal proposal for the school board to be able to vote on, because for a while it was kind of like their intention was this, but we weren't guaranteed. So now that it's gone through the formal school board process, I'm really happy to hear that. I also had a conversation with Dr. Schmidt, and he did say, it's lock, stock, and barrel, that as is basically whatever is on the walls, the nuts, bolts, the plexi. And then we did request, just so the council is made aware, we did request Eric from DSGW to give us some quotes regarding that anti-glare plexi. So that will maybe come forward at a later time. And maybe it happens, but between the time that it's removed and re-put back up, I don't know what that dollar amount is, but, so if we need to put something ahead in our budget for next year, I would recommend doing that. But I really am thankful that we have this opportunity as a community to house this in our beautiful new facility. So thank you for all the work. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Johnson.
This would be another excellent opportunity for a mining company to sponsor the removal, transport, and posting of this with a little thank you note underneath it. It will be very well viewed and probably photographed much more in the new building than it has been over its life existence in the public schools. So with that said, I will move that we accept the donation as proposed.
Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freely. Further discussion? I have had an inquiry from a mining company about some more additional sponsorship of some different things, and I have referred them to city staff, so you should be getting a call from at least that one particular mining company. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approve an agreement for exclusive vending, fountain, concession, advertising, and marketing rights at the MEC.
Okay, thank you.
So-
Ryan, once again.
Once again, continue my song and dance routine up here. Pleased to bring you the exclusive vending agreement with Viking Coca-Cola. Essentially, what this agreement is they will have sole pouring rights to pop and to the juices inside the building, and also the concession items that they are able to provide. Any items that they do not provide that we want to offer in our concession stands, we are able to go to another source for. Included in this agreement, they are basically paying us for this up to $10,000 per year for the rights to have the exclusive rights of pouring inside the MEC. So essentially, they are offering to pay us to do what we've been doing at the miners for the past couple of years. They provide all the equipment, they provide all the maintenance on the equipment, we just have to purchase their product and sell their product. In this agreement, they provide $10,000 funding annually. They offer $1,000 to be used in a house account that we are able to set up for them so that when their staff comes or they're entertaining or they want to rent a boardroom, they can tap off of that $1,000 while using the facility. In addition, they agree to put into escrow $5,000 annually for marketing. So this could be utilized for board advertisement or ICE advertisement. So again, more money that is coming to our facility just by being a Coke-only facility. So, my recommendation is that the City Council approves the agreement between Viking Coca-Cola and the city.
I will move the exclusive agreement for vending of our non-alcoholic beverages.
Moved by Counselor Johnson and supported by Counselor Beyondich to move forward to the approval of the, where are we? Number 12, approve the agreement of the exclusive vending, fountain, concession, advertising, and marketing rights at the MEC to Viking Coca-Cola. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freely.
Just real quickly again, Vaha lost the revenue that they had producing from the concession stands. They also will they potentially be impacted from this contract for the Dasher Board's advertisements, which was another significant revenue raiser for them?
And part of this contract is also that whenever they are having a tournament, a lot of those marketing dollars go to those swag things that go into the bags. So that's already taken care of for Vaha. They'll have drinks and towels and different giveaways that can go in there.
Are they going to lose their advertising, though, revenue for the board advertisements?
Vaha did not do board advertising in the main arena. That was in the, they did have some up in the rafters, which they knew that they were losing. The board advertisement was done by the Blue Line Club, and they were aware that they were losing that moving into the new facility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to proceed with caution when I ask this question. So just on reading the agreement, the term consideration, vending equipment, fountain equipment, concession rights, is there anything that could possibly, that you could possibly foresee being in conflict with or in conflict to a potential naming rights partner when it comes to their expectation, whether it be advertising on napkins or, you know, like what are Coca-Cola's expectations? Do they run parallel to a potential naming rights situation, or will we be running into a potential conflict?
The advertising and marketing in this is really simple. Here's
read
money.
simple, yeah.
Here's money. Here's our catalog. Order what you want out of our catalog.
Nothing other and above and beyond?
No, I mean, they're not saying that we cannot have napkins that looks a different way or anything like that. This is one of those really beneficial things to us that if we want to have Coke napkins in the facility, now I may not have to order napkins. Now, primarily for that $5,000 worth of marketing money, I'm going to use those for the hand towels, T-shirts, drinks and everything, so that we can give that to our youth hockey program for their tournaments and everything as another way that we continue to support our youth program.
Okay, so I just want to make sure there's no conflicts with any potential naming as we move forward.
Nope, none.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing,
What's the length of the agreement? I've been trying to find it.
okay,
10 years.
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you. 10 years. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is number 16, approve the memorandum of understanding with St. Louis County Health and Human Services Adult Protective Services Unit.
I will move the agreement.
Counselor Johnson moves to approve the memorandum of understanding with St. Louis County Health and Human Services Adult Protective Services. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approve the letter of support for YMCA for application of financial assistance to the USDA. The USDA, when you apply for any of their grants or loans, you have to get letters of support from the area community organizations around you. And so they are just asking us to sign a letter of support for their USDA application.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
Britt, is this one of the organizations we asked to support our public safety?
They got a letter from us asking us to support
Perfect.
public safety.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, item 18 and 19, you're asking to go to closed session?
Correct. Item 18 is discuss property offers for parcels in public safety development area, which should be under a closed session, Minnesota Statute 13D05, Subdivision 3.
Okay, and then also 19 as well?
Yep, discuss the agreement for naming rights at the MEC, which would be under closed session 13D05, Subdivision 1.
Okay, both 18 and 19 will be discussed in closed session. We're looking for a motion to move to closed session. Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by
I'll support, Mayor.
Counselor Baraboo. Any further discussion?
Can I run for a minute?
Yeah, hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Let's take a quick break. And unfortunately, Gene, we're going to ask you to leave the meeting. This is a private meeting.